U.S. Senator Ted Cruz wants the American victims of terrorists to have the power to sue those international organizations that have been subsidizing terror groups. This is Thursday, April 17th, 2025.
Texas Scorecard presents the day's first news for the Lone Star State, the Texas Minute, with your host, Michael Quinn Sullivan.
Well, thanks for spending part of your Thursday with the Texas Minute. After nearly a decade of voting it down, the Texas House has now given approval to legislation creating a school choice program. More on that coming up. Even as the Lubbock Independent School District is facing shrinking enrollment, the Board of Trustees is asking voters to approve $290 million in new bond debt. Of course, that bond debt would actually cost local property taxpayers $566 million to pay off when considering both the principal and interest that will be due, and that's according to the district's own estimates. Currently, ISD taxpayers are already on the hook for $413 million in outstanding debt. The era of shared governance in higher education would come to an end in Texas under legislation adopted yesterday by the Senate. The legislation would define in law the role of so-called faculty senates, which have operated without accountability. Constitutionally, regents are charged with the governance of Texas's universities and are accountable to the citizens through the governor and the Senate. The legislation by Republican State Senator Brandon Creighton of Conroe would limit faculty senates to operating in an advisory role only while establishing strict guidelines for their composition, meetings, and online transparency. International organizations that provide material support such as funding or other resources to terrorist groups responsible for attacks against Americans would be subject to lawsuits if legislation proposed by U.S. Senator Ted Cruz becomes law. Currently, international organizations are immune from lawsuits in the United States. Mr. Cruz wants to remove that immunity from international organizations that provide resources to terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. One such organization is the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. It's a prime focus of the proposed legislation due to allegations that it directed funds to support Hamas. The Texas Minute will be right back.
Why get your news from people who don't share your values? Get news stories from Texas Scorecard. We provide real news for real Texans. Go to TexasScorecard.com today.
After refusing to do so for a decade, the Texas House voted shortly after 2 a.m. this morning to adopt a school choice program that's favored by Governor Greg Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and the Texas GOP. The final vote didn't come until after hours of debate on a long series of Democrat-driven amendments designed to gut the program, though each of those failed along party lines. Passage of the legislation marks the first time a school choice bill has cleared the Texas House, a major shift from just last session when a similar proposal was defeated. Governor Abbott made the issue a defining battle in last year's Republican primaries, successfully endorsing challengers against GOP incumbents who had opposed school choice. Ahead of Wednesday's floor debate, House Republicans met privately and heard both from Governor Greg Abbott and President Donald Trump, who called into the meeting and urged them to stay united. The legislation ultimately passed 85-63, with only State Representative Gary Van Dever and former House Speaker Dade Phelan being the only Republican members to vote against it. The legislation will soon head back to the Senate, which can either concur with the House's various changes or send it to a conference committee. Governor Abbott has said he's ready to sign it into law. You can get details on all the stories mentioned today and keep up with the latest news by visiting TexasScorecard.com. This edition of the Texas Minute was based on the original reporting of Aaron Anderson, Sidney Henry, Deborah McClure, and Brandon Waltons. It was produced by Nick Shepard in the 1836 studios. I look forward to seeing you out around the Lone Star State. Have a great day.